Okay, hello, and God bless everyone. I'm just going to make this video. Well, I have a blur in the background and it's blurring my face. I hope that the sound is working and everything's okay. I wanted to talk about, I made some videos about depopulation, and I'm not sure what exactly is going on, but the death rates are excess death rates for the last 3 years, actually 4 years, are very high in the world. And this is Dr. Campbell. I'm going to mirror this. I'm going to play it a little faster. And I just want you to go through this, but I have some things to show you after, which, wait, you know what? I'm going to start with this. I'm going to start with this one instead. Okay. Here we go. China has empty cities. And right here are like 35 empty cities. And I'm trying to think of what would the reason be. They're calling them ghost cities. These are cities that are built in China, and there's nobody in them. I mean, I'm going a little fast here, but I just want to show you. Look at these cities that they built that no one's in. Now, what would be the reason? Just common sense reason why there are no effing. They got 1.4 billion people. They're telling us. I think they're under 400 million, and they're killing people like crazy over there. This is my opinion. I could be wrong. I want someone to show me I'm wrong. Go cities, go cities, go cities, go cities. That's like there's nobody. Where are the people? Where are they? What are they building cities with nobody in them for? Gee, do you think maybe there's no people to put in them? What's going on here? Oh no, we're just building it for what? What reason? What reason are they building empty cities for? Okay, that's the China thing. And I'm going to let you listen, because if you take 20% of excess deaths per year over 3 years, that's a lot of people. So as I'm going to let you listen to Dr. Campbell, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. I suggest that you, he's very good. I suggest that you subscribe to his channel, and it's Dr. John Campbell on YouTube. He has almost 3 million subscribers. He's very good. I listen to a lot of stuff. He uses reports from the government. So he's Dr. Campbell. Okay, and I'm just going to play his video, and you can listen to what he has to say. And I speeded him up a little bit, but he's got a, you can understand him. So I didn't want to spend the whole 15 minutes, but if you want to rewatch. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. We're going to go now, but I suggest you subscribe to Dr. John Campbell.
Very welcome to today's talk, Monday, the 27th of November. Now, I'm going to be looking at some of the excess deaths data from the countries that we normally look at. And I'm going to restrict this to 2023 excess deaths now, because as we get to the end of November, the year's data is starting to make sense. And the news is not at all good. We'll also be noting that vaccines, at least Moderna vaccines, are being suspended in Iceland and restricted in some other Scandinavian countries. They seem to be well ahead of the curve. And as time permits, I want to look at some data from the or information from the CDC, which you might think is a little bit strange, but we'll come on to that. Let's look at some of this excess data first, and really pretty concerning. So this is Australia here. Now, we can see that this actually begins in January 2023. So that's where we actually start this this graphic today. And it was pretty high, over 20%, just under 20%. And it seems to have dropped down really quite dramatically. Now, I really hope this is genuine data, but I'm afraid, I suspect it may not be. I suspect it may just be that it's incomplete. But we'll keep an eye on that. But we can see that the death rates have been high. And this data is all based on the 5 years up to 2019 for the averages, so way above what we would expect in 2023. Not the vast majority of these, not by any means attributable to COVID. That's Australia. This is Canada. Now we see in Canada, well, above 15% for most of the year. This is the 15% line here. So and still now well above 15% in Canada. Excess deaths very, very high at the start of the year, as you can probably see there, just at the start of the year. Moving on to where's this? This is Denmark. Well, again, fairly similar pattern, high at the start of the year, but continuing throughout the year. Now, one of the really concerning things we're noticing here is that these excess deaths are continuing through summer. So we can't attribute this to the sort of seasonality factors that we often see with influenza and things like that. There's some other factor going on here in multiple countries. And of course, the question is, why aren't the epidemiologists asking what are the common denominators here? They don't seem to be asking that question. Why isn't mainstream media asking that question? Why is it only a few people like me that are asking that question? Really pretty hard to understand, because we're dealing with an awful lot of people dying here. That's Denmark. Moving on to Germany. Again, very similar pattern. Again, deaths 10% above what we expect for quite a lot of the year, including the middle of the German summer, which of course is nice and warm. Not when we would expect a lot of deaths. Ireland, well, again, very high in Ireland, I'm afraid, round about what, 12, 14%, 12, 13% at the moment, but have been high consistently throughout the year, again, as we notice, including summer. Japan. Now, notice with Japan here that this baseline is 14%. So the excess deaths in Japan in the middle of summer were 14%. It started off over 28%, and now they're back up to over 24%. This is quite horrendous in Japan. Huge amounts of excess deaths. And I don't think I need to remind you now that we would expect excess deaths to be lower now, because vulnerable people died for one reason or another during the pandemic year. So we'd expect these figures to be way below the 2019 up to 2019 5-year average. Not what we're seeing. Why aren't people asking about common factors here? Netherlands. Well, again, notice that this is the baseline here at 5%. So it's been well above that level all the time, 20%. Now it's maybe just over 20%, again, throughout the year. And again, we see this huge peak in the Netherlands, bang in the middle of summer, 24th of June. Okay, just compared to previous Junes, but it's still not showing any sort of seasonality. Just increased deaths all year round, as if the factor that's causing these excess deaths is present with us all the time. It looks a bit like that. This is New Zealand. Again, we've been high pretty well for all of the year. Now around about 4%, I would say, above the expected numbers. It has been up until recently really much higher, up as high as 20% for New Zealand. Singapore. Now, just look at this graph of Singapore here. Let's pay attention to this. The baseline here is 20%. So the excess deaths in Singapore in about August dipped to 18% above what we would expect. So here we see the graph started at 28%, went up to over 40%, dipped right down here to about 18%, round about over 30% now. So incredible number of excess deaths in Japan and Singapore. What could these countries possibly have in common? Because they're not that close together geographically. With all these other countries, what could they possibly have in common that could be causing these excess deaths? What factor or factors could there be a common factor here? I'm just postulating that as maybe a bit of a far out hypothesis, but I'm postulating it nonetheless. That is Singapore. South Korea. Again, look at the baseline here, 15%. So this baseline here is about 10%. So again, we see that in April, the excess deaths in South Korea dipped right down to plus 10% more than we would expect. And now we're 24% more than we would expect. What could these countries possibly have in common that could be accounting for this? Because the local difficulties, okay, you can have local difficulties with ambulances in England, of course, but would that be duplicated in all these other countries? It seems a bit far-fetched. What is going on here? Why isn't this question being asked? Why isn't it being shouted from the rooftops as people are dying? This is all our world in data. Figures, of course. Taiwan. And again, look at this. It starts here at 10%, so that's the 15% line. So again, we see in Taiwan, the figures have been high all year. Deaths from all causes compared to average over previous years. And again, we're starting at the beginning of 2023. This is just 2023 data. United Kingdom, well, we're not as bad as South Korea. We're not as bad as Japan. We're not as bad as Taiwan. But that's not saying much, because we're still pretty high. Excess deaths all year round, only dipping below the zero for a very short period of time, once in the year. United States. Now, again, look at this graphic for the United States. That starts at 8%. So we see the excess deaths in the United States never. Is that normal there or normal there? Maybe once or twice got down to normal, but have been 10% up to 12% higher than we would expect for the time of year. And back to Australia. So very high excess deaths. All these countries that we're looking at. Why aren't people thinking about common factors? Now, just something else that caught my eye, actually, I just missed this, actually. This actually came out last month. Iceland halts Moderna jabs over heart inflammation fears. This is from Medical Press. Check out the reference for yourself. That's a direct quote there. Iceland suspends Moderna anti-COVID vaccines. Chief epidemiologist, whose name I'm not going to attempt to pronounce. Iceland will halt the use of Moderna vaccines. Decision was made after reviewing new safety data from Nordic countries, which shows an increased incidence of myocarditis, as well as pericarditis. Decision was announced on the website of the Directorate of Health, which is here. And that is the direct link. Again, this is the Icelandic language version, but there are translations and a lot of news reports. The chief epidemiologist says this: the increased incidence of myocarditis and pericarditis after vaccine with the Moderna vaccine, as well as with the vaccination using Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. So the chief epidemiologist here is saying, well, what they seem to be doing is saying, well, we're going to stop using Moderna vaccine. Fair enough. Moderna vaccine and Pfizer vaccine both cause myocarditis and pericarditis and other side effects, but we're going to carry on using the Pfizer vaccine. We're just going to drop the Moderna one. If that makes sense to you, do let me know how that can possibly make sense. Of course, they've dropped the Moderna vaccine, and the Moderna vaccine, or Moderna plants to produce Moderna vaccines in Oxford. They're building a new plant to produce 250 million doses a year, 250 million doses a year. New one in Australia, new one in Canada. I think there's a new one coming in Germany. Governments are putting colossal amounts of money into Moderna vaccines, and yet at least one country has said, we're going to suspend these. Questions to be asked again, I would have thought. Sweden currently restricts Moderna to older people, about the age of 32. Norway and Denmark recommends against Moderna for children aged 12 to 17, but they do allow Pfizer for those age groups. Finland halts Moderna vaccine for young men again. Mika Silliman, director of the Finnish Institute of Health and Welfare. Finnish health authorities stopped giving Moderna vaccines to young men, as we mentioned a long time ago. Over fears of heart inflammation, side effects, direct from the article. Moderna should not be given to men, boys under the age of 30 for the time being. So suspended, a suspension. And I would be rather surprised if it was reintroduced in the future, but time will tell. Now, CDC, help me with this because I'm really struggling with the CDC guidelines here. I'll tell you why I'm struggling. Right, this is their website here. Safety of COVID vaccines. Billions of vaccines administered globally demonstrate that they are safe and effective. So that's right. This is from the CDC website today. They are still saying, CDC website are still saying on their website, the COVID vaccines are safe and effective. Safe and effective. That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. Let me know what you think. But they do also mention side effects. Side effects throughout the body, such as fever, chills, tenderness, and headache, are more common after the second dose of a Pfizer-BioNTech, Moderna, or Novavax COVID vaccine. So more side effects after the second dose. So they're talking about side effects for these vaccines that are safe and effective. You might see some contradiction there. We can't say it's wrong, of course. This is the CDC website. Not allowed to disagree. Adverse events, they go on to say severe allergic reactions to vaccine are rare but can happen for these vaccines that are safe and effective. There's a rare risk of myocarditis and pericarditis associated with the mRNA COVID vaccines, mostly, not entirely, but mostly in young males aged 12 to 39 years old. So there's a risk of myocarditis and pericarditis in young men for vaccines that are safe and effective. Myocarditis, pericarditis, safe and effective. Severe allergic reactions, myocarditis, pericarditis, safe and effective. Well, both of these things must be right because they're on the CDC website. They must be right on the CDC website. So both must be correct. So the vaccines must cause myocarditis, pericarditis, anaphylaxis, but they must be safe and effective as well because the CDC says so. If you see any lack of internal validity there, then well, I can't help the way you read the CDC guidelines, can I? CDC, stay up to date with COVID-19 vaccines. Everyone aged 5 years and older should get one dose of updated COVID-19 vaccine to protect against serious illness from COVID-19. So everyone aged 5 years and over, 5 years old, little children. Even smaller children aged 6 months to 4 years need multiple doses. So children aged 6 months to 4 years need multiple doses of COVID-19 vaccine to be up to date. Multiple doses. Children, I can't believe I'm reading this. This is from the CD website today. Children aged 6 months to 4 years need multiple doses of COVID-19 vaccine to be up to date, including at least one dose of updated COVID-19 vaccine. 6 months old children to 4 years need multiple doses of these vaccines. That's what it says. Must be right. It's on the CDC website. It's got to be right. I'm going to stop now. I feel a bit faint, I think. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you for watching.
Okay, you can see he's limited to what he can say. He's obviously disgusted. I can't see how anyone can see any differently. I mean, be careful, use your own judgment. I trust this guy. I've been listening to him for a couple of years. He's good. But again, China has another outbreak going on. And I just think this really freaks me out. Oh, real estate developers, whatever kind of stupid story they overfinance. Where are the people? There is not 1.4 billion people in China. You can look at you can go to my YouTube or Rumble channel and look at the population and Georgia Guidestone things. I think that they're lying about the population. I think they're lying about the amount of deaths. That's my personal opinion. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't have anything to prove that, but I know the government lies about everything. I mean, just 35. I mean, these are like New York City size cities. Like really? There's nobody there? Yeah, oh yeah, we're just going to build cities. Where's the people? I have no people to put in them. Give me another reason. And don't go with the stupid real estate speculators. Speculating what? What, they don't look at populations? Really, I'm flabbergasted that people cannot see what the hell is going on. As long as you keep letting the World Health Organization, that's funded by rich elites, who told you that they're going to depopulate the world, and it's happening before your eyes, and you're buffaloed with all the other nonsense going on. Anyway, God bless everyone. Learn to love one another as Jesus has loved you. Love people better than you love yourself. Help anyone you can. God bless, and end of stream. So everyone take care, and God bless.